have the privilege of announcing and introducing our first speaker, who is Tony McCreath, who runs Website Advantage, SEO and Tag Manager Analytics Consultancy. It's kind of where it was historically. I first came across Tony, I think probably in the BigCommerce Dev Slack. Then I kind of saw his profile picture as kind of one of the top contributors to the BigCommerce community forums. And then also something that we share is that he is a contributing author to the SEO chapter of the Web Almanac, which is a state of the web report that's kind of done every year. And he did that, I think it was a couple of years back now. So he certainly kind of knows his stuff. So when I saw his name, I knew he knew what he was doing. More recently, as I understand, Tony, you've kind of moved very much into the BigCommerce apps, a man after my own heart, with Tag Rocket and experience in just applying your Google Analytics and Tag Manager knowledge into the BigCommerce space, which we're incredibly grateful for. But today, I think you're going to be taking us through a little bit in terms of BigCommerce theme performance.
Or the core web vitals, in particular LCP, Largest Contentful Paint.
Brilliant. I think just before I kind of let you take the floor, I have to ask, what time is it where you are?
11:40 p.m.
Well,
I'm in Australia, by the way.
It's so amazing that we have people, I believe, like on the west coast of America, as well as in Australia, as well as the UK, and I'm sure many other parts of the world. So great to be able to find just about the right time, and I appreciate you staying up to share with us today.
No worries.
Brilliant. Over to you.
All right, let's see if I can do the screen share. I'm testing this new kind of standy up type talking, so it's another fiddly bit for me as well. So I'm Tony McCreath, and as I said, I'm going to chat about LCP. So LCP is part of the Core Web Vitals, which are metrics that Google uses to measure the experience real users get when visiting pages on your store. So if your pages pass the page experience requirements, they may get a boost in ranking. So LCP, or Largest Contentful Paint, relates to your store speed. And today I'm going to give you some LCP fixes. And at the bottom of the slides, there's a link, min.to/LCP, which goes to a related article. Before I start, I thought I'd show my setup. It's been a bit of an adventure. So I'm standing up. I've got the slides on my left side. I got my notes on a vertical screen in the middle, and I can see the Zoom in the middle there, and our background chat there. Obviously got a microphone on a stand, and we got lights. We got a camera. So let's have some action. So LCP is the time it takes for the user to see the main visible content of a page. It estimates how long it takes for the page to be of value. The quicker the user can use the page, the less likely that they are to leave and the more likely to make a purchase. So this is not just to make Google happy. Google considers a page view as a fail if LCP takes longer than 2.5 seconds. So for the home page, LCP is typically based on loading a banner image on one of the carousel images. For a category page or brand page, it's typically the first few product images. Note how mobile and desktop can look quite different. Mobile will have 1 or 2 images that are visible at the start, while desktop can have multiple rows of product images. Because of this, Google provides different scores for mobile and desktop devices. For product pages, LCP is the load time of the main product image. So this one's quite simple. So now that we know which images are used to calculate LCP, how do we make sure these images load as fast as possible? Normally, images start to load after the browser has loaded critical CSS files. Once the browser has the HTML, it makes requests for the CSS files it contains. Once the CSS is loaded, it starts to load the images. You need 75% of your page views to be missed a bit. This sequence can make it hard for a BigCommerce store to pass LCP's 2.5 second requirement. In Australia, I often see HTML alone taking over a second, and that's on a fast network. And you need 75% of your page views to be under 2.5 seconds to get an overall pass grade. So to our first fix, fetch priority. A high fetch priority tells the browser that an image can be loaded at the same time as the other high priority resources, like the CSS file. This loading in parallel can remove a significant delay in LCP. Currently, it's only available for Chrome at the moment, but it's an easy win and will hopefully spread to other browsers soon. For better browser support in the meantime, you can also use the preload link tag. Place it early in the head so blocking resources don't delay it. Make sure it exactly matches the source attribute in the image tag that it is designed to preload. For responsive images, you also need to match up the source set and sizes attribute. Any difference and it will preload the wrong image, making things worse. Image preloads have a low priority, so a high fetch priority can also help. You can also preload CSS-based images that are normally discovered late and given a low priority. For LCP images, lazy loading does the opposite of what we want. Don't get me wrong, lazy loading is good, but only use it for images lower down on the page, not the ones the user wants to see instantly. This example is how most themes currently implement lazy loading via the lazy sizes script using the lazy load class and putting the real image in a data sort attribute. Unfortunately, it slows down the loading of images. It can't start loading until the theme's JavaScript bundle has been loaded and the page is rendered. As a side note, a common mistake I see when implementing lazy sizes is that you need to put a small placeholder image in the source attribute, not the real image. I often see the real image in the source, which means it is not lazy loading. I recently helped someone out in the forums who had the implementation wrong, forcing a category page to load 200 product images as the page was loading. Modern browsers support native lazy loading. All you need to do is add lazy to the loading attribute of the image. No script is required to make it work, but it still delays image loading, as it needs to render the page to know if the image is visible. I find the native lazy loading seems to provide a smoother experience than lazy sizes, where the users are less likely to see the placeholder image as they scroll. So don't lazy load your potential LCP images, but do lazy load images low down on the page. I would typically only lazy load images that are not going to be initially visible on a desktop. For example, product images low down on a category page. If you're using the Cornerstone Responsive Img component, you can set specific images to not lazy load. Here's an example of a modified product card that does not lazy load the first 8 images in a list of products. Speaking of responsive, in some cases, different devices will show images in different sizes, like a homepage banner on a mobile compared to a desktop, where the image size relates to the device's width. Responsive images specify a set of alternate images that can be used, each based on different sizes. The browser then chooses to load the image that is most appropriate to the size it's going to be displayed at. Having mobile devices load smaller versions of an image has no negative effect on quality, while speeding up the load time for images. And don't forget to make sure any preloads you create is also responsive in the same way. Some people have slower devices or poor network connections, and some sites will have more of these users than others, which will increase the site's average LCP time. Modern browsers can now send an effective connection type value in their requests. This lets servers change the returned HTML based on connection speed. For example, they could use lower quality images or remove videos on a slow connection. On some devices, the user can indicate that they want to save data. Maybe their contract means they have little data or high costs. This could also be a signal to reduce the size of the page. Currently, it's not possible to access these values in BigCommerce, but I have submitted an idea proposing that they add them to the stencil object so that developers can take advantage of them. You can find this idea at min.to/save. Right, you'll need to test your fixes. Lab data consists of a single page test. They return a lot of data that can help you discover what is slowing things down. Lighthouse is available to run locally on your Chrome browser, or is remotely run when you use PageSpeed Insights. Lighthouse gives the test page a score and provide a lot of possible issues to work on. I suggest you focus on the issues contributing to the core web vitals like LCP. There's an option to filter by issues relevant to LCP in the report, just there. However, in my mind, many of the issues can be ignored. The reduce unused type issues don't take into account that they may be used as the user interacts with the page or on other pages that share the same resource. The eliminate render blocking resources issue includes the main CSS file. It's render blocking for a good reason. The page will look terrible without it. You can waste a lot of time chasing a better Lighthouse score that makes no difference to your user's experience or your LCP. The Chrome Developer Tools lets you test on your own machine. It can simulate slower devices and connection speeds so you can make your tests a bit more realistic. The Performance tab can be great for looking into intricate details on how pages load on your machine. However, it has a big learning curve. Look at that screen. Crazy. In this case, I discovered that BigCommerce's Google Analytics solution was delaying LCP a bit. You can see here that it's using a CPU delaying when LCP can be processed as the page renders. I like WebPageTest because it focuses on actions that can improve things like LCP and not on getting a higher score. It also encourages you to test their suggestions to see if they really improve things. The suggestions on the screen should look familiar. Preload LCP images, fetch priority high. I had to throttle the test down to a 3G mobile network in India to get this page to fail. It's got quite a few optimizations on it. Now to the important stuff. Google gathers real user data from opted-in Chrome browser users. They call this CRUX, the Chrome User Experience Report. It powers the top section of page speed insights and the Core Web Vitals report in Google Search Console. And most importantly, is what Google uses to rate a page's performance. The CRUX data is only for pages that reach a threshold of page views and is aggregated over 28 days. This means it's only good at showing long-term progress and is of little use in helping you diagnose issues. Conversely, lab data does not reflect the real user's experience, so it can be hard to diagnose real user problems. I often see a pass in the lab, while for real users it's failing. This is where the last option bridges the gap. That is, you gather your own real user data in detail. And it's time for my plug. Our Tag Rocket app lets you gather data directly from the site's visitors. Tag Rocket sends performance data to Google Analytics 4, which powers a data studio report that provides highly detailed real user reports. And I should mention that our Google Analytics 4 solution is currently free for the rest of the year. The data is gathered just like the CRUX, but providing far more detail. Like the data updates daily, not every 28 days. And it contains details about every page visited, including the LCP scores and which elements were chosen to be the LCP. You can quickly identify what page types are causing the most significant LCP issues and filter by a device to see if it's mobile or desktop specific. Then dig into the data to find out which are the problem elements. You can also filter the report by effective connection type to find out if this is having a big impact on your LCP. It's especially powerful at identifying cumulative layout shift issues that are hard to find in lab tests. These reports help me discover the LCP fixes I've shared with you today. You can even have it periodically send you emails so you can passively see how things progress, like if you get a great improvement after all your fixes. And that's it. I've been Tony McCreath. I hope it was of value, and don't hesitate to ask any questions. Thank you.
Brilliant. Thank you, Tony. Super detailed. It's amazing to think like how complex web development is. How could you possibly build things performant? It's so you have to go to that extent to even hello cat to even have to go to that extent to figure out like what's causing the issue, even in particular regions. I think I've read about that in terms of India as well. So that sounds incredibly useful.
That's where I learned about saved data, because India can tend to be a problem, and someone talked about a large number of mobile phones in India have the save data switched on. So you can use that to go, I know that these people struggle with a connection, so let's make it easier for them. And so they don't pull down your LCP.
Yeah. Does the data that you have from Tag Rocket, I don't know if any of it you have available to yourself to be able to summarize perhaps like what across everyone that's using the app, perhaps what the most common kind of issues are, or is that not available to you?
No, we don't have it's an interesting idea, but like what I shared today, it's almost it's the same problems almost all the time. CLS is a bit harder because that's very theme dependent, and you see people putting little banners at the top of the screen that suddenly appear. And so CLS is quite hard to diagnose, but LCP is pretty much people are lazy loading the main image, and yeah, they're delaying the main image of the page instead of trying to make it load as fast as possible.
Yeah. And if you implement those issues or those fixes for those issues on like product listing page, category pages and product pages, based on like the fact that they're probably one of the largest like proportion of the site, does content pages, and that's kind of the area of control for someone that manages a store, where they can kind of upload any images and any size images that they like. Obviously you'd want to improve those, but is it right based on what you said that those, because there are only a few of the pages like the home page, they won't impact the kind of the overall score for the site so much, so not to worry so much about like fixing this in page builder and just focus on the theme fixes?
Yeah, that's a good question. So in the reports, you'll see typically the product pages have most data, therefore causing most of the problem. And then category pages and the home page. I do see quite often things like the cart, the checkout, the cart page has LCP problems, but it's visited so few times, it's not really an issue. It's not something to focus on anyhow. And same with unless your blog is very popular, it's typically not something you'd really worry about.
I wonder where that is. Is that our images in the theme in the cart lazy loaded as well, or?
I think it might be. There's a lot of JavaScript that kind of, I think it dynamically loads stuff,
right?
And that can cause basically the browser can't. It goes, oh, I don't know yet. That's probably it, because it keeps. I've not actually really looked into that particular page because it's just such a small influencer on the LCP. Well, in fact, the other thing is LCP is scored on a per page or per page set, and the effect is if you've got LCP, CLS, and first input did aphid, if you're passing all of those, then you get a ranking boost. So you're only really caring about pages that are going to show in search anyhow. So that's the main focus. I guess Google does want you to make everything fast, but you want to get the passing grade in those sets of pages that show up in search and are visited a lot.
Yeah. Great. Well, one last question for me, if that's okay. I think I've seen, like you mentioned, that you submitted ideas to the kind of ideas page in the BigCommerce community, but I think I've also seen you around the Cornerstone GitHub repository as well. Has there been any interest in kind of swapping out lazy sizes for this kind of issue?
Yeah, I was playing there. I've done a what I call a prototype Cornerstone, which has got a lot of hacks in it, and one argument was they can't get rid of lazy sizes because they don't know what people have used it for. Because you can manually put images on the page. So I actually did a hack that detected if there was a lazy sizes image on the page, and if there was, it would load lazy sizes. Otherwise, it would just stick with the browser's default. Oh, and you can also detect if the browser doesn't support lazy loading. So then again, you do a fallback to sizes. But it's a bit of a complex solution that is probably overkill for putting in a core theme.
Yeah, hopefully they can do a break and change at some point, release a new version. Brilliant. Well, thanks so much for your time, Tony. I will totally understand if you don't make it all the way to the end of the event, given the, given the time zone. Appreciate your time again
Well,
today.
I'll definitely sit down after this.